Before Rome ever ruled Britain, another empire could have reached its shores first, not from Italy, but from Carthage, the greatest maritime power of the Western Mediterranean. What if Carthage sailed beyond the known world and conquered the 10 islands? Image_shorts_1, a lone ancient Celtic figure standing on a misty British cliff, seen from behind, watching distant Carthaginian ships approach through thick Atlantic fog. Dramatic vertical composition, cold dawn light, cinematic historical documentary still, no readable text. Image_shorts_2, a powerful Carthaginian warship emerging from foggy Atlantic waters near the cliffs of ancient Britain. Dark wooden hull, bronze details, heavy sails, ominous sky, vertical cinematic frame, no Roman armor, no readable text. Image_shorts_3, a dramatic split visual. On one side, shadowy Roman standards fading in the background. On the other, Carthaginian ships approaching Britain first. Ancient map texture behind them, cinematic lighting, vertical thumbnail-style composition, no readable text. Carthage was not merely a city. It was a commercial empire, a web of ports, merchants, sailors, soldiers, and sacred contracts stretching across the Mediterranean and beyond. Its power came not only from armies, but from control of trade. Image_shorts_1, close-up of ancient tin ingots stacked on a dark wooden table beside bronze weapons, Carthaginian coins, and trade goods. Golden firelight, rich historical texture, vertical composition, no readable text. Image_shorts_2, a Carthaginian merchant's hands placing a tin ingot onto a parchment map showing symbolic Atlantic trade routes from North Africa to Britain. No readable labels, gold route lines, cinematic archive lighting, vertical frame. Image_shorts_3, a dramatic still life of copper, tin, and finished bronze weapons laid out together, showing the transformation from raw metal to power. Ancient Punic trade goods in the background, dark cinematic lighting, vertical composition, no readable text. And among all the resources that moved through ancient trade routes, one metal mattered more than most: tin. Mixed with copper, it made bronze. And bronze meant weapons, tools, trade, and power. Image_shorts_1, a powerful vertical thumbnail-style image of a Celtic warrior silhouette standing before Carthaginian ships, with a burning orange horizon and ancient parchment map texture behind them. Epic alternate history, mood. No readable text. Image_shorts_2, a flourishing Punic-Celtic coastal city in ancient Britain, blending Carthaginian stone harbors with Celtic timber halls and sacred groves. Ships, markets, bronze ornaments, dramatic sunset, vertical cinematic composition, no fantasy castles, no readable text. Image_shorts_3, a symbolic alternate history world map showing Carthaginian influence stretching from North Africa to Britain, with a Celtic raven emblem and Punic ships layered over parchment. Golden route lines, dark archive background, vertical composition, no readable text. Chapter 1, Setup, 3 scenes, 0:30 to 2 o'clock. For generations, the distant islands beyond Gaul were known through rumor, trade, and guarded routes. The Greeks called them the 10 Islands. To Carthaginian merchants, they were not myth. They were opportunity. In this alternate timeline, a powerful merchant prince named Mago ben Abdeshman argued that Carthage should no longer depend on distant middlemen. If tin was the lifeblood of bronze, then Carthage should control the source. Not through rumor, not through indirect trade, but through settlement. So ships were prepared. Crews were gathered. Bronze, wine, glass, cloth, and weapons were loaded into the holds. Carthage was not sending a simple trading mission. It was sending the first seed of an Atlantic colony. The fleet left the familiar waters of the Mediterranean and entered the Atlantic. For many aboard, this was the edge of the known world. Behind them was Carthage. Ahead lay fog, cold seas, and the island of Tin. The journey was brutal. Storms battered the hulls. Winds scattered the ships. The Atlantic was nothing like the Mediterranean. The Carthaginian sailors were traders of the deep sea. They endured. At last, the fleet reached the southwestern shores of Britain. There, local Celtic communities, later associated with the Dumnonian, watched the strangers arrive. The Carthaginians brought gifts. The Celts brought caution. The first meetings were peaceful. Carthaginian envoys offered glass beads, wine, fine cloth, and metalwork. The Celtic leaders offered tin, hides, and guarded hospitality. Both sides smiled. Neither side fully trusted the other. Soon, a coastal trading post began to rise. At first, it looked harmless. Warehouses, docks, a shrine, and a fortified storehouse. But every timber beam and stone wall carried a deeper message. Carthage had not come only to trade, it had come to stay. Carthaginian engineers moved inland toward the tin mines. They introduced drainage channels, timber supports, organized labor crews, and more systematic extraction. To Carthage, this was progress. To the Celts, it began to look like control. The trading post grew into a town. Punic walls rose beside Celtic timber halls. Foreign coins entered local markets. Carthaginian law began to shape disputes, prices, and taxes. Trade had created dependence. Dependence created power. Not everyone accepted the change. In the forests and hill forts, Celtic elders met in secret. They had welcomed traders, but now they saw walls, taxes, foreign judges, and armed guards. The question was no longer whether Carthage was useful. The question was whether Carthage could be removed. The first attacks were small. A missing shipment, a burned watch post, a patrol that vanished on a forest road. Carthage had mastered the sea, but Britain's forests belonged to people who knew every path, hill, and shadow. Carthage responded by fortifying the coast. Walls rose higher, harbors were guarded, soldiers patrolled the roads between mine and port. The dream of peaceful economic expansion had become something darker, colonial occupation. The rebellion found its voice in a warrior queen remembered only as the Raven Queen of Albion. She was not a queen of palaces. She was a queen of forests, hill forts, and oath-bound tribes. Her real name would be lost, but her defiance would echo through Celtic memory. Under her call, scattered tribes began to move as one. Warriors came from hills, valleys, forests, and river settlements. Some came for freedom, some for revenge. Others came because they understood that if one tribe fell, all would eventually kneel. The Carthaginian commander Bomilcar dismissed the danger. He saw the Celts as scattered tribes, brave but undisciplined. He believed one decisive march would break them. Albion, he thought, needed only to be taught fear. He marched inland with confidence, but the Raven Queen had chosen the battlefield, not open plains, not roads, but broken ground, thick woods, and hidden ridges. When the Carthaginian column entered the trap, the forest came alive. The rebellion spread faster than Carthage expected. Outposts burned, messengers disappeared. Roads became dangerous. For the first time, the colony was not expanding. It was shrinking. Bomilcar demanded more troops, harsher punishments, and total obedience. But fear did not restore order, it only fed the rebellion. The harder he pressed, the more Albion resisted. Then the Raven Queen struck at the heart of the colony. The fortified port itself came under siege. Carthaginian merchants, soldiers, and settlers crowded behind the walls as Celtic war cries rose beyond the gates. What began as trade had become war for survival. For days, the city held. The walls were strong. The harbor remained open. But inside, fear grew. If the port fell, Carthage would lose not only a colony, it would lose the Atlantic. At dawn, sails appeared on the horizon. A relief fleet from Carthage had arrived. But this fleet carried more than soldiers. It carried a new commander, Hanno the Younger. Hanno understood what Bomilcar did not. Albion could not be ruled by arrogance alone. He struck hard where needed, but offered terms where possible. The Raven Queen's rebellion was eventually broken, but it changed Carthage forever. The colony would not be ruled like a mine. It would have to be governed like a nation. After the rebellion, Bomilcar's name became a warning. He had nearly lost everything by treating Albion as a possession. Hanno saw the truth more clearly. Carthage could conquer the coast, but to keep Britain it would need allies. So Carthage changed its strategy. Local chiefs were kept in power. Celtic nobles were invited into the colonial administration. Taxes were negotiated. Trade privileges were exchanged for loyalty. It was still empire, but now it wore the face of partnership. Over generations, the colony transformed. Punic temples stood near Celtic sacred groves. Harbors filled with ships from Iberia, Gaul, North Africa, and the Atlantic islands. The town, once built for tin, became a bridge between worlds. Celtic noble children learned Punic numbers, contracts, navigation, and trade law. Carthaginian settlers learned local languages, customs, and seasonal rites. A new elite emerged. Not purely Carthaginian, not purely Celtic, but Atlantic. Tin flowed south. Wine, glass, salt, textiles, and luxury goods flowed north. Britain became more than a distant island. It became Carthage's Atlantic gateway, a western anchor of Punic power. Even writing changed. Phoenician signs appeared beside local Celtic symbols. Contracts, dedications, and boundary stones began to mark a new world of mixed identity. The island was no longer outside history. It was writing its own. By the time Rome looked westward, Britain was no longer a loose edge of the world. It was Carthaginian Albion, a fortified, wealthy, hybrid civilization controlling tin, harbors, and Atlantic routes. Rome would not find an island waiting to be conquered. It would find a rival system already in place. The map of power changed. Carthage did not merely dominate the Western Mediterranean, it reached beyond it. From North Africa to Iberia, from Gaul to Britain, Punic trade routes formed an Atlantic arc. Rome's future became far less certain. Rome still rose. But now, it faced a Carthage with deeper resources, northern allies, and Atlantic ports. Every war would be different, every treaty more cautious. Every Roman plan for the West would have to account for Albion. In our history, Britain became Romanized. Roads, villas, forts, and Latin inscriptions reshaped the island. But in this timeline, Britain was not Romanized. It was Punicized. Its roads led to harbors. Its elites spoke the language of trade. Its gods, laws, and markets carried the mark of Carthage. From that fusion, a new Atlantic civilization was born. Baal-Hamon blended with local sky and fertility deities. Celtic feasts met Punic contracts. Bronze ornaments carried symbols from both worlds. This was neither fully Carthaginian nor fully Celtic. It was something history never had the chance to see. And if Carthage held Britain, the world after Rome might never look the same. The Atlantic could become Punic before it became Roman. Northern Europe could enter Mediterranean politics centuries earlier. And the balance between empire, trade, and culture might shift forever. History often remembers the empires that conquered. But sometimes, the more interesting question is what might have happened if a different empire arrived first. This has been Historix Vault. Subscribe for more alternate histories that ask one question. What if the first ending was not the only one?